February 20th, 1991, Kelty Byrne is killed by Telecom at Sealand of the Pacific in Victoria, British Columbia. December 24th, 2009, Alexis Martinez is killed by Keto at Loro Parque in Spain. February 24th, 2010, Don Brancho is killed also by Telecom at SeaWorld Orlando. According to orcahome.de, there is over 140 documented orca attacks on trainers since the beginning of marine parks in the 1970s. What is the common factor in all these attacks? Captivity. There is only one documented orca attack on a human in the wild. As an aspiring marine biologist, I have a unique drive and passion for the ocean, but even more so for the marine mammals that thrive in it. If you've ever paid to see a marine mammal in a tank, this affects you because it is your money that builds up these corporations. It is your children that will grow up thinking it is normalized to hold one of the most intelligent animals on the planet captive in a tank. This affects anyone who is against slavery or abuse. Today I will persuade you to boycott animal abusement parks. That's right, I said abusement parks. I will focus on the mental, physical, and emotional side effects on marine mammals and traders alike, focusing on, but certainly not limited to, killer whales. If captivity was not a problem, Kelty, Don, and Alexis, along with the hundreds of orcas, dolphins, sea lions, pilot whales, and beluga whales, would still be with us today. One reason they are not alive is because of some of the detrimental side effects that they experience from being held in captivity. According to PETA, this tank, for 12,000-pound Telecom, is the equivalent of you and I living our life in a bathtub, like this. Just think, if you lived in a bathtub for decades, wouldn't you get a little bit stressed out? Wouldn't you want to kill someone also? Stress is the top reason for orca aggression. They are constantly working, constantly following commands, because they know if they don't, they will get deprived of food from their trainers, as ex-SeaWorld trainer John Hargrove explains in his book, Beneath the Surface. They experience the same side effects of stress as we do, such as anxiety and depression. Another mental impact of captivity is pure boredom, which leads to obsessive compulsive behaviors such as this. Bobbing up and down and up and down, swimming in circle after circle after circle. This is what they do when you don't see them performing in shows. Their complex brain simply cannot be stimulated in a concrete tank. All of the 57 orcas held in 14 marine parks in 8 different countries experience this side effect. And this is only a portion of the over 150 wild-caught orcas that have survived according to the Whale and Dolphin Conservation website. Not to mention the other hundreds of marine mammals. Because they are in captivity, they are not kept with their natural family, and they are mixed with unfamiliar whales, so this can occur. Tooth raking. The whales rake their teeth on one another's skin. This can occur because of jealousy, trying to establish dominance, or simply because the whales do not get along with each other. They don't only rake each other, but they also rake their tanks as well out of boredom, which are painted cement walls. This leads to scraping cuts, such as this orca has. You can see that the entire bottom half of his mouth is sliced open. This leads to also tooth problems and decay, stomach ulcers, infections, and digestive problems. Because of this, SeaWorld trainers actually have to drill the decay out of the orca's teeth on a weekly basis, which can be very painful. These problems can also be fatal for the whale. A specific example of a painful fatality for a whale is Candu. Candu was put into a tank with Corky, an unfamiliar female. The whale simply did not get along. Candu tried to ram Corky, but ended up hurting herself fracturing her own jaw and splitting a major artery in her head, and proceeded to slowly bleed to death for the next 45 minutes, as you can see in this video.
Fought to Cadu's death.
Apparently, there had been some tension between these two families for a number of weeks and days preceding the incident, but the show must go on. In fact, at the very beginning of the show,
this would have never happened in the wild because the whales have millions of miles to swim away from other whales that they don't know or they don't get along with. But when they're isolated in tanks, they don't have much of a choice. And that is why their lifespan is half as long as their lifespan in the wild. Let me just put it to you like this. No orca in captivity has died of old age. And perhaps the worst side effect from being in captivity is kidnapping. At SeaWorld, daughter Takara was taken away from her mother Kasaka. When this happened, Kasaka started making vocal sounds that no one had ever heard from her before, and this can only be understood as grief and crying.
Kasaka continued to make vocals that had never been heard before. They brought in the senior research scientists to analyze the vocals. They were long-range vocals. She was trying something that no one had even heard before, looking for Takara. That's heartbreaking. How can anyone look at that and think that that is morally acceptable?
Kasaka was looking for her daughter. Dr. Laura Marino is a neuroscientist who has studied orca cognition. She states, and I quote, "All whales in captivity have a bad life. They're all emotionally destroyed. They're all psychologically traumatized. Because of this depression, whales experience from being separated from their families. They're given antidepressants such as Valium and Xanax to keep them performing in shows, keep selling tickets, and keep the money flowing into the park. But sometimes when that doesn't work, they turn to self-harm, such as this pilot whale and this dolphin, who has tried to commit suicide. So how can we stop this abuse? The answer is simple. Boycott SeaWorld. Boycott all marine mammal entertainment companies. When they don't have anyone to entertain, they will be forced to retire their animals to sea pens in the ocean where they belong. Kiko is a prime example of a successful release of a captive killer whale. And for those of you who don't know him as Kiko, you may know him as Free Willy. He did pass away, but it was most likely from the initial problems he had at the time of his release from being in captivity for so long. SeaWorld claims that they have the best interests of animals in mind, but with sales plummeting to the ground since the 2013 release of the documentary Blackfish, which follows the story of Telecom, who I mentioned earlier, and how being in captivity has disturbed him and many other whales. They've come up with a new website called SeaWorldCares.com and have started campaign commercials stating things like they haven't captured animals from the wild in over 30 years. The only reason for that is because of the Marine Mammal Protection Act of 1972, which has banned them from capturing whales in Washington, Iceland, and many other places. They also announced to double the size of their orca tanks to satisfy the concerned public. But guess what? There are still tanks, and they're still 1/1,000,000th the size of the ocean. If SeaWorld went out of business and the animals were retired, we would be able to observe, appreciate, and research their natural behaviors in their natural environment and truly enjoy them for the magnificent creatures they are. If SeaWorld continues on, more lives can and will be lost of both animals and trainers. And if they would have retired their animals long ago, Kelty, Dawn, and Alexis may still be with us today. Here are some things you can do to help stop this absurd act of imprisonment. Boycott, watch the Blackfish documentary, sign online petitions such as the ones of SeaWorldOfHurt.com, read Beneath the Surface by John Hargrove, Death at SeaWorld by David Kirby, Behind the Dolphin's Smile by Richard O'Barry, and educate others. And remember, next time you or someone you know thinks about spending money to see marine mammals perform in a tank, just remember, they are dying to entertain.